And he said, "Oh, everything changes 3-up. Everything changes." And I was like, "In what way?" I was like, and it actually in that moment occurred to me that the rules were different 3-up than they were 2-up. And actually the rules 2-up were different from 1-up. And in fact, the things that work at level 0, you have to unlearn as you rise up. And I think unlearning is one of the great entrepreneurial superpowers.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Organization Business Podcast. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. My guest today is David Houston, an EO Queensland member, CEO and owner of the Australian Dental Group, with a team of 60 plus working across 5 clinics. In today's episode, David shared his interesting startup journey of taking over his dad's dental clinic and being forced to sack him. And through scaling the business, he was able to discover a framework that helped him to slowly remove himself from the day-to-day running of the business and be on a level 3 leadership ladder. He realized from his own experience and a decade of observations that entrepreneurs have a very common trait, depending on their distance from the customer. So today you will learn the different levels of leadership and what steps you need to take in order to move up the ladder and achieve the business freedom you've always dreamt of. So let's join me in welcoming David. Well, welcome to the show, David. So good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you again, Lynn. It was in GLC. I think we had dinner, which was at the butcher. It was awesome.
I know. And I can't believe you've been at EO for over 10 years as well. And I still love your passion and, that kind of desire to give back to the community. So it just shows the kind of character you are. Yeah, no,
I'm actually more engaged with EO than I've ever been. I'm on the board now and I'm in the role of engagement, which is, no surprise. And see you there. I love talking to random people, love meeting EOers, hearing their stories from all over the world. And it's just a joy. EO is just an incredible community that I've always felt. It's probably the most safe and the most at home I've ever felt in any organization, because it's an organization that just mandates truth and honesty, and there's no facades. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it too. I'm still new, so I thought that only new people have this kind of enthusiasm. But I saw you in person, and you were just as enthusiastic as me. But let's dive into the world of entrepreneurship. But before we do that, I want to learn more about your journey and how you got into this whole dental industry.
Yeah, so I followed my father into it, actually. My dad was a dentist. He had a dental business. And so we went traveling, and we actually traveled the world for a year when I was 10 years old. He made the snap decision, we're leaving, and off we went to 42 countries. And that was just incredibly changed my life, obviously, in so many ways. But I see, whilst we were away, it occurred to me that he had this small business that was functioning in his absence. And I remember asking him, was it still making money? And he said yes. And that to me was the moment I knew that entrepreneurship was this sort of remarkable thing. And, he came back, he's a very technical guy. He came back and stepped back into the role of dentist. But all through my high school dental studies on the Gold Coast, and then even commencing working with him in business, I knew that this business, this family business of sorts, had the capacity to operate independently of me, and that was always a dream that we had wanted to sort of make manifest.
Wow! So, did he encourage you to get into dentistry, or did you actually fell in love with it?
Not profoundly, not with great strength, but it was something that that I guess I did choose myself, given. And at the time, it was like, because I like work, you tell yourselves these stories saying, oh, I like working with my hands, I like helping people, but deep down, it was really rooted in that experience of enjoying the freedom of time, traveling the world, but also, knowing that there's a secure income there. Like that actually was what caused me to fall in love with dentistry. And then, very quickly dental business. I bought him out. He was meant to stay on with me for 18 months. But, being a 65-year-old man at that point, he didn't want to hear from his 25-year-old son how to run the business. And so he kept making decisions, as he always did. And I guess my first real HR test, about a year in, was sitting down with him and saying, "This isn't working, Dad," and that you should consider all options. And he returned the next day to say, he's retiring, and that was a great move for all of us. But it did probably leave him with a pretty bitter taste in his mouth about me and the journey that I would go on, which broadly speaking, he didn't support. And that was hard for me. That was but the choice was between, really satisfying my dad or having my own mental health and, journey. And so as I sort of started to step back from practicing dentistry after about 5-year period, I really dived into it. So I decided it was time to, you got to follow your own truth. And I think EO's brilliant. EO was really, so I joined EO. I was in a forum with multiple people who'd made that step from, frontline technical services to management. And they normalized that for me, whereas everybody, else it was very rare in the dental community to be a dentist who didn't practice dentistry and was a manager. But, in nursing, for example, it's a very normal thing that a nurse would be a manager at a hospital and not serving patients. But in dentistry, dentistry is one of the last great cottage industries. It was very unusual. And EO normalized that. And 3 months later, I said, I'm having a year off. And that was in 2014. And here I am,
So tell me more about your practice now. Is it like a, one venue in Queensland? Like, how is it?
Yeah. So, look, today we have 6 locations. We're just settling on the 6th at the moment. We've got sort of about 20 dentists across the 6 locations, and we've got about 50 auxiliary staff that support them. It fluctuates, month to month, but that's, and they're all, interestingly, the first person who ever got me onto EO was, I went to a presentation by Tom Potter, the Eagle Boys Pizza founder. And I talked to him and he was big into franchising. Initially, I was interested in franchising within dental clinics, but he very quickly talked me out of it. So I didn't say, no, franchising, franchising isn't as good as it used to be, kind of thing in his era. And he basically, he said, if you're going to own a group of small businesses, you really want them to be geographically close to each other. So that was interesting, and I said, oh, what's an example? He said, oh, when he went into Auckland in New Zealand, he basically set up a group, essentially a head office owned group of Eagle Boys restaurants, but they were all centrally owned and they were all within the Auckland CBD. So I think geography matters was a point that he made to me, and my lived experience has played that out to be true. That of course we have 5 locations pretty much within a 20-minute radius. We can share patients across the different facilities. We can share dental assistants. We can share dentists. And also for me, I stepped into that role of general manager. It was easy for me to manage all 5 within one day rather than, an hour to one, an hour to the other, an hour, So I think it was a really profound piece of advice that I adopted. And even our 6th location is only half an hour away as well. So yeah, I really think geography does matter. It matters in a lot of ways, that we don't fully sort of appreciate. But yeah, definitely, I think in building a cluster of small businesses, it's essential not to have a lot of your human energy wasted.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I never thought of the proximity, the closeness. I actually used to think when it comes to franchising, you're trying to, or not franchising, but having more location is about going further so you can cater to different, people in different locations. Yes. But it sounds like as if you've just got influx of customers that you can't handle in one place, that they don't mind to drive maybe, 10, 15 minutes out or...
So dentistry is every industry has its own unique niche. Dentistry is what you'd call a grudge spend and a very anxious spend. So you're basically when people go to the dentist, they're getting attacked in the, like they're getting stabbed in the face with needles. It's not. So if the question becomes, if that's going to happen to you, where do you want it to happen? And you want it to happen close to home. So dentistry is this very geography centric. People tend to go to the dentist closest to their house because they're anxious and they think, I want to be able to get home quickly, and I think that's the subconscious reason, because 55% of the patients come from a 10-minute radius, so very, very close. So that's an interesting effect. So look, within every suburb already, there's existing dental clinics catering to those communities. We've done a few greenfield sites, but more and more we buy the legacy clinics that have been around for 20, 30. Our oldest clinic's been around 50 years. And actually, one of the clinics we bought and rebranded, I bought off a dentist that graduated dentistry in 1958. So I walked into his clinic and he was there like with a cigarette in hand, just in the dental clinic. And I said, which sort of took me aback a bit. I was like, but I was already there. I was already committed, and so I said, if you're ever thinking of selling, let me know. And he said, he goes, well, I go, you're probably not thinking about retiring. It's, well, I am 81, and so anyway, he ended up selling, and we relocated from that facility into our own building. That's a funny story. That was clinic. Yeah, number 2 was a greenfield. Number 3 was that sort of walk in, walk out. And 4 and 5 have been legacy clinics, and so will number 6.
Yeah. So I love that your dad already knew to not be stuck as a technician in the business. Like, what were the...
Yeah, that was interesting. Dad's true passion was actually local government politics. He was like the mayor of our city.
Uh-huh.
And so dentistry and local government in those days, which was a part-time role, typically now they're full-time roles, would work very well together, because every half an hour you're meeting another voter and you're developing a trust relationship with another voter. So you basically build this incredible network of people that know you, have interacted with you, and trust you. So it all worked, for who he was, Dad, as a hands-on leader. It was nirvana for him, what he sort of created for himself in Redcliffe. And he did some wonderful things. In Brisbane, there's a big seawater lagoon at South Bank. Well, that was modelled on the Redcliffe lagoon that he built during his time on council. And he did a lot of really amazing things for the city. He passed away in December last year, but he had one of the longest political careers in the history of local government in Queensland. He was elected for 17 years. So,
wow.
So yeah, big shoes to fill, coming back into that community and sort of stepping into his job as well. So it didn't take me long to realize I really need to forge my own path in entrepreneurship, and EO, supported that and has ever since. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it that keeps dentist people stuck in the business compared to the way your dad and you approach business? Like, how were you able to step as in the different levels that you mentioned to me before?
Yes.
Work on the business and not in the business.
Yes. So yeah, I do talk in levels a lot, and I've just returned from Adelaide doing a presentation, my sort of favorite keynote presentation about the levels of entrepreneurship. And I really believe, typically most people in EO who find their way into EO haven't studied business, have no sort of theoretical framework for business like I didn't. And they come in and they're serving the customer directly. So they're sort of zero distance from the customer. And so within our business, we call that level 0 because, and level 0 has certain characteristics that help you succeed. My dad, although he did the politics on the side, he remained a dentist all the way through to retirement, and he was phenomenal at it. Like, he was a phenomenal level 0. Entrepreneurial anyways, yeah.
How was he able to travel to 42 countries if he was still the dentist?
He lost an election. This is why we left. We lost an election. He was heartbroken that the community had rejected him, and I don't think he wanted people coming in to say, "Ha, you lost every single dental appointment for the next 3 years." So he said, "Let's go away for a year."
Wow.
And so that good fortune that the public said, the community didn't vote him in was the thing that changed my life.
Gotcha. Yep.
So that's why we had that year away. But it was very much the exception to the rule. Dad was, he was on the front line of the dental clinic. He was busy. He really had two jobs: local politician and also on the front line. So. Basically, and I learned a lot from it coming into dentistry and learning the craft. That was really important to basically understand what makes you succeed at level 0. And in my travels within EO, I started to notice exceptional performance amongst other entrepreneurs who are pretty much sole operators often, or just work directly with the customer. And there was a lot of sort of parallel attributes to that reminded me actually of my time as an elite athlete, which I did sort of through in my early 20s at university. So so I talk, I like to talk about what makes a phenomenal level 0 entrepreneur, but then the decision for me was to say, I'm gonna have a year off. I'm gonna jump up to level 2, and I'm going to jump past my level 1 practice manager up to level 2, and I'm going to become a general manager.
So what's a practice manager? When you say practice manager?
Yeah, so basically they're the practice manager is the receptionist at our clinics. They're on the front desk, but they also set the roster, they run the staff, they hire dental assistants to support the staff. So, I sort of said, I'm having a year off, probably inspired historically by what my dad did, but right. And I'm going to jump up. I didn't actually know what I was doing. I was just like, I'm not going to be a dentist for a year. And that was quite terrifying. My wife was, Karen, who's in the FLP program now, she was, at the time, she was a bit concerned that, we wouldn't have, money to live and stuff like that. But, we had a pretty good business, I thought. And it is a leap of faith. I talked about this a lot to the Adelaide chapter, jumping up to that level as general manager and just overseeing everything rather than actually being involved in the value creation is a very important. It's a very big step, and it's a very terrifying sort of step, but it is the step that sets you free, because you go from running the business when you're working on the front line or working with customers. You're often running the business half a day a week, exhausted, and then you jump up, replace yourself, and you're now running the business 6 days a week, fresh as a daisy. And so it's extra time that allowed me to invest in systemization. My early interest in setting up a franchise really got me onto the concept of systemization, and I dived really, really deep in that. And my wife, who's very Dutch and organized, she created sort of a bespoke way that we do that through Google Drive. That I was sort of unpacking with the guys in South Australia, and that's been really, really useful, and I think it's also useful in a lot of other industries. So I'm looking forward to sort of sharing that systemization framework better. In summary, it's systems have to be 3 things. They've got to be targeted, editable, and updated quite regularly. So there's a mechanism for that, and you've got to target the systems to the particular role. You've also then got to basically make that role systems understandable and comprehensible via frequency. Frequency is the key to systemization. So things that happen, daily need to be in a basket. Things that happen annually need to be in a basket, and then everything in between needs to sort of be delivered in a comprehensible way, in a digestible way. You can't just throw everything at someone and say, here's all the systems for the whole business, pick out the one that's relevant. It doesn't work. So that was a long process. That took 2 years at least to get that framework, understood and then digested, and then but now once it's embedded, it really allows you to duplicate. So, I could immediately duplicate that system at our second site, and then third, fourth, fifth, and it was literally like turning a key once it works. If we buy the sixth clinic, that the hope is within 4 weeks we're operating at 85%. So that there was a journey at level 2, I call it, as a general manager, which are really looking after the present, who's coming, who's going. You're really sort of very connected to everyone. And then just before COVID, I sort of made the decision that because, if things are well systemized, your phone doesn't ring, and my phone wasn't ringing. It was just working. The business was making money. People were following the systems. So I thought, this is a time for me to sort of be brave again and try and say one of these exceptional level 1 managers should step up and become the general manager, take my role. And so I did that. I handed it on to a really talented 26-year-old.
Wow.
Dominique, her name is. And she took the business. She quickly wrote a system for her. And she took the business down through COVID and all the way back up, which was a very dramatic contraction and then expansion, because on the contraction side, we got reduced. We were still essential, thankfully, so we weren't closed, but we got reduced to 20% of our available services. And then on the expansion side, there was a period of maybe 9 months after that where everybody's locked in this suburb. They can't go on holidays. They're given $1,500 a fortnight by the government, and everybody has a lot of latent dental work that they until that point they couldn't afford, and so it became this tsunami of work. It's kind of equalized out now, and I think the whole sort of, I'm glad the communist experiment is really behind us in terms of, that whole period. But yeah, like it was fascinating, and I was actually very thankful to be working through her at that time, because at the back end of 5 years, I was still quite exhausted from that 5-year period as general manager, and so to be able to have all of that emotional turmoil happen without having to be be brave on the front line for the whole, visible to the whole business was lucky. Having said that, I probably overdid the step back, and it occurred, and I was in forum with Tim Tocco, we're in a forum, the Gold Coast High Rises, and so if anyone ever comes to the Gold Coast for a retreat, definitely hook us up with a joint forum. I'll throw that out there. But yeah, we're on the coast here, and he said to me, something that really stood out. He said, "Oh, are you because the business was going okay. It wasn't collapsing, but it was definitely sort of plateauing without me as general manager." And he said to me, "Oh, are you a 3-up leader now?" This is the words he used to me. And I said, and I was like, yeah, I'm a 3-up leader. Yeah, I am. I guess I am. I am 3-up. Yes. And he said, "Oh, everything changes 3-up. Everything changes." And I was like, "In what way?" I was like, and it actually in that moment occurred to me that the rules were different 3-up than they were 2-up, and actually the rules 2-up were different from 1-up. And in fact, the things that work at level 0, you have to unlearn as you rise up. And I think unlearning is one of the great entrepreneurial superpowers. Is if you can't unlearn what works, because at level 0, it's like 99.9% accuracy is important. Mm-hmm. Then you jump up to level 2. If you're working through people, you kind of got to be comfortable with about 80% of what you want. Mm-hmm. Right? And then once you jump up to level 3, it's about 65%, like if it's, and I think of it like a ship. Like if you're sailing a dinghy by yourself, you can turn on the spot, right? But if now I've got 70, 80, imagine if 70, 80 people, it's really, it's slower. It's slower. Imagine turning a boat that has 80 people, like how much slower that's going. And yet, you've got this perspective to say it's my job not to hit the iceberg in 6, 12, 18 months. And so I sort of then started to observe. Basically, I think one of the great rules is whatever level you're at, you need to find 5 mentors either at that level or at the level above, because there's no point having a level below, because if I've met the most phenomenal entrepreneurs, level 0 entrepreneurs who are financially, are much more successful than me. But the advice that I need to resonate as an entrepreneur at my chosen level is different. And so you can seek them out, and EO makes that so easy. EO lets you connect, and there's just such an air of goodwill around that. If any other EO, you knock on their door, they know you're committed to this process of self-analysis and self-improvement and honesty and confidentiality that, they'll help you. And that happened to me. I connected, obviously, at Tim in my forum, but I connected with others, and you start to see the patterns of behavior that actually work. And they're very strange. They're very, very, they're not what you would expect. And they seem a bit, just as a sort of a microcosm of my day. I went in yesterday. It was one of our staff was retiring after 11 years with us, and I came in with a little mini karaoke machine and sang a song to thank her. Right, and then I immediately ducked out to the solicitor and I signed an agreement on the new plea. So there's this really diverse basket of skills that make an impact at level 3, and I still continue to learn them. And I am quite fascinated by it, actually.
So can you define what level 3 is, in a sense? Like, what is your responsibility now that you are at level 3?
Yeah. So, big part of it is if the level 2 team are managing the present, and the level below that are really based on the past, because you've systemized all of your knowledge into the system for them. For the first time at level 3, you have the luxury of actually thinking about the future, like in a deep sense, like spending weeks on it, and diving into these new areas of technology that can totally disrupt your business. So there's a strategic short-term strategy and long-term strategic play that need considerable investment in time, and it doesn't feel like work. But if you don't put the work into that, then you'll wake up one day and suddenly the industry won't be there anymore. And you hear stories all the time. So dentistry, like so many industries, is getting impacted in a variety of ways. I would say, really, one of the things that the best level 3 leaders I've observed is building in a morality to the organization, so that you're kind of a magnetic. You're very a magnetic organization for people to come and work towards. And actually going and studying it at I went to the Bond Uni APAC program. And that was a 5-day program, and I didn't have that. What is our sort of differentiating core that's got to be kind of magnetic? And I came away from that on the 5th day. It just all comes together, and so I continue to be a huge advocate for that program. If you haven't done Bond, you absolutely have to do it. The lecturer is totally superb, and there's this channel of information within university. Business has been studied for 500 years in universities, and in EO we're constantly studying case studies and real world data that we're encountering, on a case by case basis. But it sort of builds a channel between those two things and says, and gives you sort of an academic framework to understand the things you're experiencing. So yeah, huge advocate for Bond. That is, and actually doing that work, I would say, is kind of a level 3 activity. You don't have time to do that at level 2, really. And it's funny, level 3 is so bizarre, because I have never done less, but I have never achieved more. You know, it was, and it's funny, a lot of the EO learning events, when I was sort of working my way through the levels, I didn't have time to implement everything I was learning at the EO learning days at the different events. And I think that's a very normal frustration for EOs as they sort of grow through the business. But now, you know, I'll go to a marketing event and I can say, here's a list for the marketing manager to go at level 2 to go and deploy. We'll go to, you know, we'll bring my finance person to the cash day. I'll bring my, you know, any strategy sort of things. I can bring my growth manager to that. So it's a very bizarre experience to be achieving, for the business as a whole to be evolving at a much quicker pace, but yet I'm doing less, but yet that is what my role is. And that is the role of the level 3 leader. And without it, you're at a strategic disadvantage. I mean, above me as well, like if I've got to come up with an accurate picture of the future, you know, there's a level 4 advisory board above you that typically, and, you know, I've been lucky enough to see what best practice like that looks like in other businesses, and also through the advisory board. I think it's called the Advisory Board Institute that Louise Brockman runs. She sort of gives you a best practice framework for that. So that's, and you meet other EOs. I run the mentoring program within Queensland, and, you know, some of the mentees that come back, sort of EO alumni, and even active EOs that are clearly actually level 4 entrepreneurs in their own way, in that they work through a CEO and they basically advise the CEO, and the CEO fully does this job and runs the business. So, you know, I would say Mike O'Hagan of Mini Movers is one such example that I've sort of noted from afar and gone, yeah, you know, in his application, he said he works with several boards. He owns plenty of shares, works with several boards, and chairs several boards, but actually doesn't work in any of the businesses. So there's this, so in that entire sort of spectrum, it's sort of in that distance from the customer framework, I really feel I've stumbled across something quite useful to allow EOs to communicate with each other, and I'm enjoying walking that path myself along the way, and obviously enjoying sharing it. I did it down in Adelaide and got rated 96%, which, you know, for a tough EO is sometimes to do it in Sydney and Melbourne and the rest of the world.
Yeah. So if you were to summarize one key thing that needs, if you're at 1, what is the one key thing you need to ace in order to get to level 2? What is the one thing you need to ace to get to level 3? And obviously you're saying you're at level 3 right now. What do you feel like you need? What are you working on in order to get to level 4?
Yeah, I could work what are the key items at each level? So So I'll start at 0. You know, I talk about the concept of pulling the thread. So really connecting with someone on a human level, and pulling the thread, and then they'll offer you a bit more about themselves, pull the thread. So it's often the interpersonal connection that trumps the commercial intention at level 0. So you've got to be a master of immediate interpersonal connection, and there's skills to that, and they're easy to develop. And I actually teach them a lot to my own dentists and stuff like that. We coach them through. At level 1, what you've got, I think, the framework to understand is this: you're now managing people, so you need to understand what people are actually. You know, you need to start to understand that people are different from you. And so you need to understand what you are. DISC allows you to do that, and you need to understand what they are, and then you can make a bridge in terms of communication, intention, and instruction. At level 2, the key is systemization. You really need to become a systems thinker. You know, there is no, you know, the rule at level 2 is never explain anything. You know, there's always people saying, "Oh, can you explain this?" You say, "No, I can't, but I'll write a system and I'll send it to you." You know, so which seems kind of rude, but it's essential. You know, it takes 10 times as long to write a system that explains something, but once you've done it forever. Like it is eternal, and you will never ever in your life have to explain it again once you've systemized. So there's this almost investment phase that that really, is counterintuitive to the base experience of when you started, where doing it yourself, getting involved, getting connected, using your own personal charisma is the key. Now you're becoming more an information-based business. In level 3, I think, is this basket of skills. I think there's a fantastic EO in Brisbane called Glenn Carlson.
Yeah.
API. And
I did that program, actually.
You did the program. Yeah. So sorry if it's a bit sunny here, but sunny Queensland, I'll come forward. But so Glenn, he really pointed out the need to broadcast to me. And he basically said, he challenged me actually, and he said, because I was, for a long time, I never gave speeches to my own team. Actually, for 10 years, I never gave a single speech to my own team. I'd grown the business to 5 locations with 0 group setting speeches. And I'd sort of intellectualized that as, I'm very private, I like one-on-one. But it was really just sort of almost, it was a learned survival behavior from high school where, I learned the efficiency of just be quiet. Just don't make anybody jealous. Don't make anybody, just achieve in stealth. Kind of, was the lesson I'd learned. And he challenged me at this EO. In Queensland, we do a 5th pillar on the scaling up days called sales and marketing. And he spoke and he said, you need to broadcast. And I said, oh, I'm very private. And he goes, oh, no, you're not. I know you're a raging extrovert. You're not. And I said, oh, that's actually true. And he said, well, just if you need to learn to broadcast, you need to be brave, and that will get you, it has this phenomenal concept of the desert, across the desert quicker. And so I took that advice on and I made this change in my life with the help of my forum. I went back to my forum, presented on it. I did a presentation called The Invisible Man, Why I Hide Inside My Own Business. And I did it. And, that was probably a year and a half ago. And I've been speaking ever since. And now I'm presenting into chapters. And it's really unlocked me and changed my life. And I think that took me 10 years of EO to get to that self-awareness. And so, all the people that, I just don't think, there's no point in the reason I continue to engage with EO is there's no point in the journey where there's not something more to unlock, like a deeper truth about yourself to find, and that will profoundly change the wavelength upon which you can operate and influence the world. And
Yeah. And I love that you're now at the journey where you want to give back. What is it that you told yourself that you want to be remembered for then? Like, what is that legacy that is determined to do, towards the end of his life now?
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know about the end of my life, but I definitely think I would love to do this presentation to all the chapters of the world. There's 220 chapters in the world. I've done one. So I really would love to just connect with all the chapters and share this model of how to view yourself as an entrepreneur on the journey. It's almost like giving you a treasure map, I feel, as an entrepreneur to go, where am I? Oh, where am I in relation to the customer? Okay, this is a very important variable for me to be aware of. And it also allows different EOers to interact differently. I think more, you're always asking, where are you from? What's your business? What chapter are you from? I'd love a day when every EO in the world sort of says, and what level are you at? Because you would immediately know if someone's talking to me and they're level 4, and that's where I wanted to go, I would, immediately it gives a voltage to the conversation that allows that conversation to be more fruitful, more specific in what do I need to go to get, what do I need to learn to go from level 1 to level 2 when you meet someone? Or perhaps you're a master of your craft at level 0. Perhaps there's lessons there that you could take in and then pass on to your own maestros at level 0 as well. So yeah, I feel there's a piece of architecture missing within the EO world and within the world of entrepreneurship that that inadvertently I've sort of stumbled across for my own benefit, but sharing it, if every EO in the world figures out their level and rises one level, that's a pretty big impact, and that's a pretty big legacy, because worldwide, if we rise up, like if every entrepreneur just gets a little bit further from the customer by empowering more people in the roles that they've systemized beneath them, then that's what actually will, really drive capitalism all over the world. So yeah, that's what I'm sort of hoping to do over the next, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It's continue in my role, continue learning, but really share the framework. And I really, I thank you for sort of giving everyone a teaser of the longer presentation today, Lynn. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I guess I can resonate, because I think we all want to start a business to have freedom. And unless we step up in the different levels, we'll never find that freedom. We're just always stuck in the business. So I love your framework, because it's it's easy to understand. At Outsourcing Angel, my own company, we're always about like, how do we help you to grow, to scale your company so you're not stuck in it, so that it can run without you. And I think this is really just in line with that. And I really appreciate the time and teaching me this, because I want more people to understand this, so they can at the level.
Well, your business is a facilitator of level elevation when you sort of, and that's kind of almost every business you meet, or also every speech that I encounter with EO, I can kind of place it. I go, yes, this is relevant to level 3, or this is relevant to level. It's sort of all. If you have the skeleton, all the knowledge that gets thrown at you through EO starts to put meat on the bones. And your business is a profound utility in that journey of helping free the entrepreneur's time. So good on you, Lynn. You're doing the work.
Well, thank you so much, David, for your time today. I'll have all your details in the description below, and people can connect with you on LinkedIn. And like you said, you're available to share your message and to help entrepreneurs scale. So I do hope that people do reach out and invite you to speak at their chapters as well. So thank you again for your time.
No, awesome. See you next time. See you soon in Sydney.